Time to check in with Steve Torso. He's head of Australasia's leading VC and capital raising platform for sophisticated and accredited investors, Wholesale Investor. Let's check in with Steve to find out which startups are currently in the hunt for cash. He joins us in the studio right now. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you in. We've already met one to steal a little bit of the thunder, Carbonscape. What an amazing company.
I know. So I think they're a good one to start off with because I think if, like I was speaking to one of, someone sort of quite senior that I know, and one of the things they said to me, I asked him, which sector are you really looking at? And the area they said was renewable energy infrastructure, right? And if you think about that battery area, people wouldn't typically consider as infrastructure, but the logic is that electric vehicles are really going to dominate over the next sort of couple decades. So the companies that are able to sort of be willing, active sort of participants in that area, but also be important in, I suppose, reducing the damage to the environment in the manufacturing of those batteries becomes really quite important.
And they're raising at the moment,
yes,
and have seen a lot of interest. It sounds like incredible technology and world leading.
And another great company they have, New Zealand as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And they've got a cornerstone investor out of it, a very high profile businessman, Danny Chan, that's their cornerstone investor, which is always a good thing to look for investors. They want to know who's already sort of gone into the business and also sort of the traction that they're already getting. So I find that's typically helpful.
Now, the other one that caught my eye, because EdTech, of course, has become a really important one in the whole COVID era, Global Study Partners. Tell us a little bit about them.
So I picked Global Study Partners, and I actually picked it because of one of my shareholders. Now, the reason, one of my shareholders invested into a company in Canada called Apply Boards. Now, this company, in their last round, was actually at under 100 million. They recently just raised money at 1.4 billion. So they became one of Canada's latest unicorns. So I picked Global Study Partners because this is a really, really common thread. The challenges that actual students have trying to find the right courses and get the right setup for when they move to different countries. In Australia, education is a $39 billion industry. So I thought it was a good one to highlight for this session.
And what are they looking for?
Capital.
With a capital C.
Correct. So as always, looking for capital, but also strategic partnerships as well.
And obviously, tertiary education has been hit quite hard this year because of the pandemic. Are they seeing that as quite a temporary thing?
I think, like with most of these companies, they typically are. So when you've got these sort of situations, they find ways to navigate around it. Applyboard, the company in the UK, they've actually continued to grow even with the challenges faced with COVID. And also, I said, I noticed that with them, they typically just take the approach that they just make themselves more visible at this time, because ultimately, Australia, being educated in Australia is sort of a sort of prizely sort of sought after, so they'll just look to continue doing their function.
Now, building inspections and ACUS, which is the other one, which kind of also sounds quite intriguing.
Correct, by drones as well. As soon as I see something with drones, I'm like sort of quite interested. But what they said now, there's been a few people that have had I suppose, a crack at this area, but I think ACUS have done a really good job. It's a company out of Singapore. What's really interesting, they're using autonomous drones to actually help with the building inspection process for the different companies they work for. They've highlighted the sort of trigger events for them around the regulatory issues and so forth, but also, once again, looking for capital.
And Steve, what's your take on the space? It's been a couple of weeks since we spoke to you last. Are you still getting a lot of interest from investors?
So I was going to say, right now is the most, from a company's point of view, I don't think we've never seen as many companies that are coming to raise money. From the investor side, are still exactly what we said a few months ago. It still remains the same today. Typically, the investment at the moment, the private investors are the most active, but also they're looking to be active, right? So I said had it from my own experience and also from the conversations with our clients. Investors are looking to be active with their private company investments at the moment. So it's still the same thing that we're seeing. The other thing that we will highlight is I listened to, had a great sort of summary from an economist recently. They were highlighting that they see for them the period of, call it this time, sort of next year, is when they see the economy being hit, the sort of hitting its sort of lowest point. So we're sort of highlighting to companies that if they are thinking about raising capital in the next 12 months, now is the time to do it, because once you come into that Christmas period, it's typically difficult from a capital raising perspective. But even more than that, said the capital raising timelines are going to be taking longer and longer as you sort of head towards mid next year.
I think that might have come out of last week's Venture and Capital Conference, which was right here, right next door.
Correct.
And the Ausbiz studio too. Were there any other key takeouts that came out of that 2 day? You did it as a virtual conference here, that really sort of made your eyes prick up when you sort of heard what people were saying?
Well, it's not at this point, because I chat with everyone before those sort of conversations happen. I chat with all of them. What I think is really important at the moment is that companies need to start thinking about international as well as just local. I know a lot of us have been in defensive mode. Now's the time to go in the offense mode and actually look for those international partnerships. And also the other thing I'll highlight is that a lot of people have existing relationships that can help with those potential international relationships. So the thing my takeaway is that the international groups are looking now more and more still at the international deals, and you don't need to travel. So take advantage of that.
No. Steve Torso from Wholesale Investor, great to have you in. Fascinating companies as always. Catch up with you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thanks, Steve.